Might as well kick this off today. Just wanted to, thank everybody for coming to the meet today. We're going to be this is James Heiss from Appnovation Technologies. We'll do an intro here in a second. Just wanted to thank Brian from Acquia and Peter Monks from Alfresco for coming and doing this webinar. I'm going to talk about Canopy, a Drupal Alfresco integrated solution that we developed at Appnovation, and as well just general Drupal Alfresco integration. So I guess we'll skip to the next slide here, and I can see here's the speakers.
Looks like we lost James here. I don't see his phone. James, are you there? So, this is Brian from Acquia. I'll introduce myself. I'm VP of Product Marketing, and so I'll be covering some of the Drupal slides. Peter, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. And sorry, we lost James. Yes, I've been with Alfresco for around 4 years. I'm currently within our business development team, working on strategic alliances and focuses specifically on the kind of technology side. So my background is kind of as a software engineer / PS type guy. I'm very Drupal is actually something I'm not overly familiar with, except from a functional perspective, and it's certainly something I'm very keen to learn more about. My background is from a WCM perspective, so obviously Drupal is one of the big names, if not the biggest in that area. And it's good to be working with Brian and the Acquia team on some Alfresco Drupal integrations, and of course, integration as well.
It's ironic, Peter, because I come from the document management and content management world at Documentum in a previous life. So that's how we both ended up at the wrong company. Are you back?
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can, great. So why don't you take back control and keep us moving?
So sorry about that there, guys. It's always entertaining trying to do these things. So here we go. So yeah, I'm James Heiss, I'm Director of Business Development at Appnovation. We're a partner of both Acquia and Alfresco, do open source development. So we're sort of an IT services company that does open source development. We're based up in Vancouver in Canada. So today, what we're going to talk about is we've done a couple introductions here. We're going to talk about the company backgrounds for Appnovation, Acquia, and Alfresco. We have some slides. We're going to talk about why you want to integrate Drupal and Alfresco. We're going to talk about some use cases, and then I'm going to do a quick descriptive demo of our Canopy solution. So a live demo for you guys to see, and then we're going to sort of do some Q&A after that. I'll let you take this one here.
Great, thank you. And before I dive into some of those agenda items, I thought it would be good to do a little bit of recap. And this is not necessarily Alfresco or Drupal or Canopy specific, but one of the things that I've noticed in sort of the 10 or so I've been WCM industry is there is a lot of confusion about what WCM is, and I figured some of the folks on this call may some of that sort of I guess preconceived notions of what WCM is, and in the context of this presentation, this webinar, I think it's important to understand a little bit about the acronym and some of the confusion around it. So I've sort of provocatively titled these slides WCM, the most balked, the most broken acronym in IT, and hope to explain a little bit more about it. So when we look at WCM, we typically look at things like this subway map. This is produced by the Real Story Group. They're doing it for a couple of years now, and it really covers all content technologies, not just WCM, but also document management, records management, imaging, digital asset management, etc. But a lot of people, and I don't necessarily want you to try to look at this in detail, obviously it's a very small diagram, but I want to look at this diagram and basically have a response, something like this. It's one sort of extreme confusion. I think WCM in particular is one of the most overloaded acronyms in a, and that's the reason that as an acronym it is quite broken. In particular, it describes several different unrelated categories of application or system. In looking at WCM's sort of history, sort of from the early mid-90s, when kind of Interwoven were playing the space, one thing that's become to me is that there really are fundamentally types of WCM systems that are actually quite orthogonal to one another. They're really different applications. Those are editorial systems. The Real Story group refers to those as decoupled WCMs. And there are delivery systems, which the Story group refers to as coupled WCMs. And really key thing to understand is the focus of these systems is on quite different functional areas. The editorial systems really focus on the editorial process, how you create your content, manage it through some kind of approval process, publish it out to various channels, the web being potentially one of many channels. And alternative delivery systems that focus on delivering content to the audience or audiences. And that can be multi-channel. It doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily limited to just web or indeed the internet. I should mention that, in fact, the industry's done an even worse job of trying to clarify this acronym, because things like HTML editors, things like front page, Acronym, for example, the FC editor, some of those HTML editors also often get marked or given the WCM marker, and I think that does a disservice to potential users and implemented this technology by confusing this term so heavily. So I guess the key thing to understand here is that WCM is not a single definition. There are actually multiple, quite different systems that describe themselves as WCM. In the context of the presentation that we're giving today, it's really important to understand that we are in fact talking about completely aided systems. A little bit more detail. I sort of mentioned this before. The editorial WCMs really focus on the editorial process. It's the creation, management, and eventual distribution of web content. And in fact, it can be more than web content. It can be content that goes to other formats, print, for example, or kiosks, or in-store promotional displays, that kind of thing. Some examples of those are, of course, Alfresco's WCM technology, the old Interwoven Team Site technology, which may now be called HP Team Site. I have no idea what the latest name of that is. And the former Vignette VCM product, which is now called massive mouthful of a name. I'm not going to even attempt to say it because I know I'll get it wrong. And then, of course, there are the delivery WCMs. These ones, again, I mentioned before, they focus on the delivery process, the performance distribution of web content to the audience that needs to see that content. And obviously, Drupal is premier in that space, but there are others as well. In fact, I would argue that this is the area that has seen the most innovation and the most focused product R&D over the last maybe 5 to 10 years or so. There's been many more delivery-focused WCMs emerging, editorial WCMs. Now, but there are very few, potentially none, of the WCMs that currently are sort of out there in the world that handle both the editorial and delivery requirements well. I've seen a couple of attempts at this. I used to work at Vignette, and Vignette had a strong editorial capability and actually acquired some delivery capabilities. The result was a very kind of sticky tape and band-aids and paper clips issue of those technologies. The solution to this is to integrate best-in-class solutions into these categories. Pick an editorial WCM that does a great job of managing the back-end production process, the editorial activity, integrate it with a best-in-class delivery solution that knows scales, that supports the kinds of theming, branding, look and feel activity that you need. That way you really end up with a best-in-class solution for both types of activities. And that's much what today's presentation is going to be focused on, is how Appnovation has attacked this particular problem through their Canopy solution. So let me hand back to you, James. I think that was it for that one. Can you take it back? I'm just trying to figure out this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, so this is James. A little about Appnovation here. I'm going to do a little intro about Appnovation, and then let these guys talk about Acquia and Alfresco. But Appnovation, we're one of North America's top open source development shops. We're based up in Vancouver. You know, we have a lot of expertise in creating consumer-facing and B2B websites, corporate government intranets. We have a lot of enterprise-level back-end document management and workflow work. You know, a lot of work in mobile web optimization, cross-platform mobile, e-learning platforms, and e-commerce. So this is, you know, we sort of do a lot of different things, but all based around open source. So the three technologies we specialize in, and the two main ones we're talking today, Drupal and Alfresco, and then we also specialize in SproutCore, which is an open source framework for cross-platform mobile development. So a bit about us, we're one of only several companies accredited as both official Drupal and Alfresco development shop. It's through partnerships with Acquia and Alfresco. We're also one of the few partners of Strobe, which is the commercial support for SproutCore. SproutCore, as I said before, is the H5-based technology used to build Apple's iCloud. So if you know, we work with government organizations, ad agencies, media publishers, brands, software companies, not-for-profits, so all sorts of different people. Just the quick slides, so you can see some of the people we work with. Province of Ontario, LexisNexis, Health, NBC, Amex, Department of Defense. So we've done a lot of different work. So the question is, what is Canopy? It's a Drupal Alfresco integrated solution. What we did is we've done a lot of work with Drupal and a lot of work with Alfresco, and realized that both of them are fantastic at different parts of what they do, but integrating together allows for a really good way to basically have the enterprise back end of Alfresco and then, you know, the really powerful web publishing front end of Drupal. So for Drupal and Alfresco, we're going to hit the horse's mouth here, which is Acquia and Alfresco. I'm going to pass this over to you, Brian.
Thanks, thanks, James. So first, let's talk about Drupal. And so, you know, James set this up as what's Drupal, and I thought the best way to show you to show you examples. So Drupal's a lot of things, and as Peter mapped out, as a presentation and delivery tool for web content and certain kinds of web content. It's about corporate experiences, and so we're seeing more and more enterprises around the globe adopting Drupal as their primary platform to drive their corporate websites. It's content-rich experiences where you're integrating photos, videos, rich media, user-generated and user-contributed content all into an experience, be that fan sites, artist sites, media sites, customer engagement experiences. This is an example of Semantic Connect. This is a customer support community website where there's more than 200,000 members of this community, and 95% of the content in this community is contributed by customers and partners of Semantic. So they're people helping each other and sort of the power of collective behavior to solve customer support and product questions around Canopy's products. Semantic's products. About community experiences for organizations that are interacting with the people that build or use their products. In this case, developer communities. Sharing technology, interacting with R&D organizations, interacting with partner channels to share information, share tools, SDKs, technology. Certainly this is a great fit in the high-tech space. Is being used in lots of different vertical markets. It's increasingly used for citizen engagement. Drupal has tremendous adoption in the public sector. What we see here is a new e-petition website that's been launched by the White House, where citizens in the United States can come in and file a petition or sign a petition right on whitehouse.gov, gather signatures, and then have that go to the White House and to other houses within a federal government for review and for action. These are just to give you some flavors of all the different types of websites Drupal builds and Drupal offers. We talk to organizations, particularly large global organizations. What we're seeing is more and more people, when they think about the number of websites that they have within their organization, it's no longer 1 or 2 or even 5 or 10. There's hundreds of websites, both inside the firewall and outside the firewall, both of which we're going to talk about today. And they're looking to standardize on a delivery tier across those websites. And so increasingly we're seeing organizations like the New York Stock Exchange, Florida Hospital, and others consider Drupal for that. And Acquia, just briefly, is we provide organizations with a broad list of products and services to help navigate the path to go from the learning phase and starting out with Drupal through a build, to deployment, and operations phase. And we work very, very closely with partners, technology partners like Alfresco, and implementation and development partners like Appnovation to help guide your organization along this path. But ultimately we help people be successful and build successful enterprise deployments with Drupal. So, James.
I think, Peter, I think we're going to have you talk a little about Alfresco here. So you want to go for that. So here's the Acquia overview.
Sorry, Peter. One slide. So, we've been doing this a lot. So we have lots of customers, lots of partners. So on.
Thanks, guys. So just a few stats about Alfresco, the company first, and then we'll get into more of the functional. What is Alfresco, the technology? We, on a new basis, we now are the largest privately held open source company. Obviously, Red Hat is still significantly larger than anybody else in the open source space, but they're public. So we've. I'm not a marketing person, but I can see the marketing spin on this, which is by adding the word private, we can really tell a story. What's more interesting to me, though, is some of the sort of statistics about Alfresco. We're a young company. We're around 6 years old. We've had 3 million downloads of our open source, our LGPL open source, Alfresco Community Edition. We now have, actually, this is a little out of date, we now have over 2,000 customers and around 250 channel partners. And channel partners are folks like Canopy who provide services around the Alfresco technology. So Alfresco itself really is in the business of selling support subscriptions and providing kind of really, high-value consulting and training and services of nature. But the bulk of the implementation work, the projects that our customers are implementing Alfresco for, we generally work with our channel partners, Appnovation and so on, for implementation services. And for that, we've really focused hard on building a large channel ecosystem to give customers a lot of choice, and also make sure, of course, that the quality is an appropriate level. We've had consecutive quarters of revenue growth as well, so our revenue has actually increased. We've been quite lucky through, or well managed perhaps, through the 2008 housing downturn. What we noticed was that the US and Europe was somewhat out of sync with that, so we were in fact able to continue growing revenue even as those two economic regions stumbled to some degree. Moving on to the interesting stuff, though. Really, in terms of what Alfresco, the technology, does, we are an enterprise content management system, so we do cover sort of the typical gamut, starting with the methods of document management, capturing, sharing, and retaining corporate content. We typically focus, or a lot of our implementations focus on the Office formats, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. But Alfresco is certainly capable of storing more richly structured content in the form of either metadata-only objects or things like XML as well. We also have records management capabilities, so at this point We are the only open source content management system that has the US government records management standard certified. So that standard, it's a bit of a mouthful, but the standard is called the DoD 5015.2. We achieved that certification in late 2009. In fact, coming up for recertification every year is the vendor recertified, so we're coming up on that fairly quickly. We provide web content management capabilities, and getting back to the earlier slides, it's important to stress that Alfresco's focus on web content management is really in an editorial capacity. We are an editorial WCM. We do not really play in the delivery tier. For that, it's a case of either pick a best-in-class web framework or application, or in some cases it's appropriate to roll your own if you've really got a large number of developers and a preference for building out that kind of infrastructure scratch. We have a collaboration tool that we can share, and this is for basically team-focused collaboration around content. This is somewhat similar to SharePoint. That's typically who our customers are looking for, that kind of capability when they're looking at our collaboration user interface. And I should mention that's built on top of the sort of fundamental document management, records management, web content management capabilities of the repository. It's just a fairly, if you will, opinionated view of those capabilities, specifically for that collaboration use case. We offer, and this is, I guess, getting back to this point, we offer a content platform, and that in and of means that we can provide content facilities to other applications so that other applications don't need to implement them themselves. This is somewhat, I guess, the GR and the Java content repository specification was an attempt to the implicit failed because of the Java centricity of that approach, amongst other factors. And really what we've done is we've tried to reimagine that and re-implement it in a way that is actually suitable for any technology, any real content use case. And of course, the CIS specification helps with that too. Then finally, we've actually, about a year ago, launched a new Apache project called Activity, which is a new EPM engine. And that's really an attempt to kind of shake up and get some innovation happening again in the workflow and business process management space. So Activity is an Apache project. You can find it, well, I should say an Apache license project. You find it at activity.org, and that's basically free for use. Even is a good workflow engine. Our intent there is not to become a workflow vendor. Our real goal is that we need workflow capabilities, and the solutions that we've been using today have really not kept pace with the current of play. So we reluctantly, but I guess we're pretty much forced to look at funding our own and basically pushing innovation by funding that sort of development. I think back to you.
Yep. Perfect. So the thing we're going to talk about is, we use Canopy, which is Drupal and Alfresco together. Basically, we're going to talk about the benefits of Drupal here, and then also the benefits of Alfresco. Brian, I'll let you take this if you want.
So very quickly, as we talked about in some of the experiences, organizations are really looking to combine these two market categories in web experiences, and that is very clear in some of the examples I showed before. They want to publish traditional content. They want to take advantage of rich media, but they want to take advantage of the social aspects and drive engagement on their website around those content-rich experiences. James, if you go to the next slide, so what Drupal provides you is a very flexible, modular framework to quickly assemble web experiences, address what we call social publishing needs. Plus, there's a very, very large developer community, thousands around the globe, that are constantly creating new modules to expand that and help you move at web speed and take advantage of new technologies, new social tools on your website. But at the same time, Drupal is certainly a proven platform. They're a very large site. It's proven from a scalability perspective. It's proven in large multi-site deployment as well as multilingual deployment, so it supports global enterprises. And flexibility and the power to create very, very large-scale when projects and do so very, very effectively without becoming too complicated for content contributors or taking advantage of tools, content production processes like the ones we're going to show today, good, really, really powerful content delivery capabilities that are native to the platform.
Cool. Peter, I'm just going to pass it over to you here because I think you got a couple slides.
No problem, James. I'm sorry. So the benefits of Alfresco, of course, we have a very rich document repository system with all of the typical abilities you would expect: versioning, document translation, metadata extraction, ability to associate documents to one another to create effectively graphs of document related. All of this information, of course, is searchable. Currently, we use the Lucene search engine, which gives us both full text and a data search. I should perhaps mention at this point for the techie audience that we are in the process of moving or making Solar, the Apache Solar search engine, an option. Lucene will still be available, of course, for backwards compatibility, but we're looking at Solar as well. We have a complex workflow engine embedded. It allows the definition of all of the typical things we expect: branching within workflows, parallel workflows, sub-workflows, subroutines, that kind of thing, escalations, timeouts. In the upcoming version, it's called code name for the next version is Swift. Swift will actually include that activity workflow engine that I mentioned earlier. We do have records management capability. As I mentioned, it's backed by the DB 5052 standard, so we've certified on that a year or two ago now. It is so we can cluster. We do have a lot of customers who run Alfresco in the cloud on Amazon or Rackspace, for example. We also run our own trials on Amazon. So if you go to alfresco.com and sign up for a trial, an online trial, that's actually provisioning a virtual machine for you on Amazon under the covers. We do support most of the typical sort of security mechanisms you would expect. HDS, for example, USLDAP and other external location providers. We widely support open standards. We're a big believer in basically adopting both protocols and APIs to allow contributors and consumers of content to get the access using their tools of choice. Of course, that's all backed with enterprise support from Alfresco, the company. So if as a community user you find that you're in great success with Alfresco implementation, then we would love to help support you in providing service to your users. I think you, James. I'm sorry, I forgot about these slides. Yeah, so the focus of Alfresco, and although those previous slides covered the basic capabilities, the general focus of Alfresco is really around the management of content, regardless of what type of content it is. It might be documents, it might be rich media of some kind, it may be structured data objects. What we want to do is focus on managing it. That I mean the life cycle, the creation of the content, the perhaps editing and revision of the content, the approval of the content, the distribution of that content for consumption, and then, of course, finally the disposal and or archival of that content. So diagrammatically, you can see that we break the life cycle of content into four basic phases. There is capture phase, and it's interesting to point out there that that doesn't necessarily mean capture from a human. It may mean auto ingestions of content from scanners or high-speed capture devices, but also human or manual creation of content. There is also the management of content, editing the content, running it through workflows, securing it in some fashion, perhaps integrating with other applications using things like CIS, the Content Management Interoperability Standard. There is also the consumption of content, and really that's the focus of today, is how does that content get delivered out to one or more audiences? The archival of that content. What happens to the content when it is no longer needed or no longer relevant to an audience? Is it captured? Is it disposed of? there's something else that needs to happen for compliance purposes, for example.
So the thing is, why would you integrate these two technologies together? As you can see here on the left, Alfresco, as I said, it focuses on the processes around content, and then Drupal focuses on the presentation of the content. So basically, solution, it enables process and presentation of content. So you can do back-end processes around working with the content and then have the ability to present it in a really, really nice fashion on the front end, take advantage of all the social features and modules that Drupal has. So I guess we're going to talk about some use cases. Brian, you were going to talk about the intranet stuff here?
Yeah, so one of the use cases that we see a lot for an integrated Drupal plus Alfresco solution is around collaboration, intranets, and internal social networks. I've talked a lot about how Drupal is really well suited because of its native social capabilities for creating sort of a white label branded social networks. We see this a lot in the high tech space. We see in wireless as an intranet with 90,000 employees utilizing it, and it's all about engaging those employees to interact with other, to find expertise and collaborate, but also to interact with the organization, sort of official channels, be it HR or what have you. We also see this a lot in professional services firms. Capgemini has a really powerful, incredible knowledge base for all their consultants around the globe that they tap into that's all built in Drupal. One of the things that we find in the intranet use cases is there's a strong combination of social and content. They need white label social networking. They want to have their brand, whatever an organization is, and they want to be able to collaborate and have profiles and friending and activity streams. These are all tools, for instance, that we've built into a product called Acronym, which is configured for community sites in Drupal. But because it's inside the firewall, because it's on the intranet, the vast majority of that collaboration happens around documents. These are shared documents, Word documents, PowerPoint, Excel files, and the other file types that exist within an organization. So having a strong document management repository with library services, with checkout versioning, with some workflow when there's content that needs to go through an approval process is critical for facilitating the adoption of those collaboration tools. And there's also potential requirements around compliance, e-discovery, records management really, really important in the intranet environment. And so having a strong back-end repository to manage all of that content, what Drupal does on the social side, becomes really, really critical.
Cool. So, Peter, I think take this one.
So the extranet use case is actually functionally similar to the intranet use case, but it spans organizations. And although that's a very important, if you will, functional difference between the intranet use case, from a technical perspective, there's actually not a hell of a lot of difference between the intranet and extranet use cases. Some two examples of this are people like or organizations such as digital agencies or professional services firms who need to deal on a daily basis with managed documents that a workflow that includes employees. So as let's say, a graphic designer or a digital agency, going to be sending some kind of, graphic design or a mock-up or a branding, sending information across to my client, and then getting approval, getting comments, getting feedback on that from that external client. So intranet case is somewhat similar to an intranet in many cases. What's actually happening technically is very similar, but the actors involved in the use case typically span organizations. I should mention that often the workflows of compliance rules here can be somewhat more involved, particularly if there's sort of contractual obligations, for example, that the branding information or the intellectual property for any branding or graphical elements need to be preserved for some period of time, or indeed the intellectual property is owned by the customer. So sometimes those compliance requirements are somewhat more complicated in this case than in the Intranet case, but technically it's fairly similar to the Intranet case. For the next slide, what we'll see is the a sample architecture of what this looks like. And really, as mentioned, that architecture is basically the same for both Intranet and Extranet. You see here that Alfresco is sitting in the background managing content. There are content specialists who may be interacting directly with the Alfresco user interface and directly managing workflows and manipulating content in Alfresco. And the Drupal on the front end is acting as, if you will, the interface for most of the, if you will, rank and file users of the content. And those are employees, which is the Intranet case, or partners, business partners, Extranet case, functionally, technically, the architecture is much the same. Now, obviously, there may be firewalls and things like that involved, but sort of at a high level, this is the same. And you'll notice if we go to the next slide here, you'll note content operations, create, retrieve, update, delete. Those are actually all occurring through that Drupal front end. So Drupal is in fact manipulating the content where it lives in Alfresco, with Alfresco acting as the system of record for that content. And this is something that, as we'll see in a minute, is quite different to the int case.
The other use case that we see a lot of stuff is, or a lot of users is with public websites. So basically, a public site, there's large numbers of predominantly anonymous users. On Drupal, you really need web scale performance requirements for the delivery tier. So if there's a really high traffic website on the front end, it's to have Drupal that was really scalable in terms of the front end. So basically, primarily read-only content. Reads are limited to e-commerce and UGC. The other side is with Drupal, you can have a really highly customized look and feel. The theming on the front end is fantastic. As well, you see a lot of brand-specific site design. Have Drupal on the front end. It's with the public website use case. It's a modest content set size. There's only thousands to 10,000 of content items. You normally don't see millions of content items like you would sort of in an intranet sort of scenario. So public website integration. The great things about it is with I get the editorial process for site content, management of articles, press releases. You can manage all the product information and all that kind of stuff from inside of Alfresco, as well as you get, approval processes. And all this kind of stuff is the stuff that with Canopy, when we built it, that we're taking advantage of inside of Alfresco. And then on the front end, you get, the visual presentation of the site. You can know the navigation, the page composition, personalization, analytics, and all the different other modules that you can put there. It's really fast and cost-effective to develop Drupal on the front end for public websites, as well as intranets and extranets. The other of it too is it's really good to tune it for performance optimizations on the front end. You can see just a sample architecture here, just for a website. You can see in the back end there's the editorial tier that we spoke about. So the editors being people that are running workflows on documents and content, stuff like that. There's then it replicates to the Drupal servers. We'll actually see that we actually can do web editing. It really depends on sort of what your needs are as a company. Some companies will do all the web editing inside of Drupal. Some will want to do it in Alfresco. Both provide a service, but it really depends on how you want to do it, because the interface in Drupal is very, very simple to edit web content and display it. So basically, we have it set up as it actually bidirectionally syncs, so you can edit content in either either system, and it syncs back and forth. So we'll do that in the demo that I'm going to show in a few minutes here. On the front end, obviously, you'll see the firewall and then site visitors on the front end. I think, Peter, did you want to take this one? Just a few other use cases.
Yes, thanks, James. And the reason for this slide is really to point out that although these are the most commonly seen use cases for this kind of information, they're by the only ones, and there are variations. So, for example, there's a site that has a syndication component. For example, a large manufacturer may want to send content out to their distribution partners or retailers, that kind of thing, in a regular fashion. That doesn't really fit under the public internet or indeed the Intranet Extranet case. But in looking at some of those requirements, the content read-only, it's distributed out after some kind of approval process. What we can see is that the use case is actually quite similar to the public website case. And for a lot of that architecture and those capabilities, this case will be relevant. So understand, and the differentiator really is whether content via the front end via Drupal is right, or whether it's read-only. And if it's right, then the use case is basically going to be closer to the Intranet Extranet use case. But if it's only, it's going to be closer to that public website use case.
Perfect. So just a question about why we built Canopy. The idea was, for the past several years since Appnovation's been around, I've been doing a lot of Alfresco Drupal integration work for numerous different clients, and what we decided to do was build Canopy as a solution to allow for a lot more efficient and cost-effective development. So each time, rather than redoing it from scratch each time, we built a system that allows us to do faster development, make it more cost-effective, and then have a scalable and secure code base that we can reuse each time that we're doing development for this type of thing. That's the reason why we built Canopy. So now, I'm going to do a demo. I guess you guys probably want to see what this is. So I'm just going to share my screen here. In a second. Just let me know if you guys can see this okay when this pops up here. Do you see the desktop okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So, that's Webex. Let's start with, here is just a Drupal site. This is the Drupal front end. This is just a demo front end for Canopy. So you can see how the Drupal feature slideshows, articles, recently viewed articles, recent news. You can go between that. There's polls. These are all Drupal modules. How's the aging? Better than most. Thing. So our vote was recorded. These are results. There's an article archive. News, articles. Forums. This is all sort of the box Drupal stuff. Blogs. You can have a blog, and then galleries. You click on pictures, and this is all sort of out of the box Drupal stuff. So we integrate all this. This is sort of a Drupal front end. So basically, the idea being that this is synced Alfresco on the back end. So the content is being allocated into Alfresco on the back end. So if I go to Alfresco Share, what I'm actually going to do here is you can see inside of Alfresco Share we have a theme similar to look like Canopy. So you can actually preview Canopy from inside of Alfresco and then take advantage of all the other little features that come with Alfresco Share, all the collaboration stuff, calendars, tasks, activities, profile, all this, and there's a lot more you can customize based on what you need. But here you see that, if I hit the repository, again, second. So head to the repository. See, basically, these folders are actually content types inside of Drupal. So if I upload a piece of content into one of these folders or create content in here, it actually syncs with Drupal on the front and then places it in the right place on the Drupal website. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually create a quick piece of content inside of Alfresco. So let's see here. So let's try this one. Folder sets world. I'll click with nitrogen. 1 second. And then I'll hit there. So put in the title. Let's put that in again. And then I'm going to just grab the content and paste that. maybe. And if I hit here, put the content author, all the there. So, pick a plate, which is today, and I'm not going to publish this content, but I'm going to create it and then actually run a workflow on it. So content, so you can see actually the content inside of Alfresco. So this is one of the cool things about Alfresco. It has a great workflow engine. So I do is I'm actually going to start a workflow and then just do a simple one, just have somebody review and approve this. So please review and approve this content. Make it due today. And then I'm going to select the review. It's actually going to be health. So that, and then basically I want to start a workflow. So I sent that actually to under user for workflow. So I'm just going to actually quickly and then log in as my host. And then you'll see here's the workflow. Please review and approve this content. So it opens up. Here I can see. It's in a new tab. I can review this content. Second. So here's the content. I can take a look at that. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Go back and I can actually just approve this. Approve that. If I log out, and then I can as myself or as the administrator, I can see the content approved. Simply from here, I can actually just navigate back to the repository. And if I go by my content, I made an article. So here's my content. I can actually just publish it to live. So this is successfully completed. If I go back to this site, I should, yeah, so you can just push the content directly from Alfresco into Drupal. So you can see here, so I just ran a workflow on inside of Alfresco and published it from inside of Alfresco to the Drupal front end. So this is one example. This is publishing content from inside of Alfresco and running a workflow on it. The other side of it is, I can actually create content directly in Drupal. So if I write an article in Drupal, for example, I can just do another article here. So let's just use this one. Safe while using mobile phones. Sort of a bit of an issue from time. So publish make it today. Trying to spin around here, but just got to copy and paste the content. That, copy the content here. And actually choose a file or choose another. Just upload. See, here's the image. And I'm just going to do this as published, so you can actually run a workflow and make it published. But I'm just going to leave it published for now for you guys. So this content, you'll see here's the article that actually is live in Drupal now. So you can see the article in the image. If I go back to the Alfresco repository and refresh this page. Oops, 1 second. Here we go. Here's my page that I just created. Mobile HTML. So what it does is it syncs the content back and forth between the two systems here. See content. Here's the content I just created on the Drupal website inside of Alfresco. So basically, in terms of content creation, this is just one example. There's a ton of different ways that you can do this. It really just depends on what the use cases are and what the needs are for different organizations. But just to show that content is replicated between these two systems, and that's basically what Canopy does. Just a couple of the things it does. One of the cool things that we actually have as well. So this is all done via lightweight web services, basically content back and forth, and it's something we use parts of CMS. In this actually, what you're seeing now, this is actually browsing the Alfresco repository from inside of Drupal. So the sort of intranet use cases, this is something that you'd see, so that's sort of why we tossed this in here, just so you can take a look at. We're actually, browsing documents that are inside of Alfresco. So, here's a document that I'm browsing inside of Alfresco. So if I actually go back to the repository in Alfresco, you can see that if I go to documents, or documents, go to docs, here's the Word doc that I'm browsing from inside of Drupal. The cool thing is, this is one of the other things in terms of the intro. You can actually create folders, create actual content, with a Word editor, or you can upload content. So in this example here, I'll just upload a piece of content. So here's a test document. If I add this content, you should see it. So it showed up in the repository through CMS. It's getting pushed back and forth through the open standard here. So if I go back to Alfresco and refresh this page, you should see this content show up. So you can see here's the contents actually in Alfresco. Like actually, I upload that from inside of Drupal. So you get, the integrations happening between these two things allows you to take advantage of, both systems really however you want. So there's a lot of different cool things you can do. These are just a few things we wanted to show you today. Other than that, there's definitely, as I said, a lot of different interesting things you can do with the use cases. So I'm going to stop sharing the desktop here and talk a little bit about just what the architecture of Canopy is, just so you can see a little bit from more of the technical side, actually how it works. So if we head back to webinar, see, this is just the last thing they wanted to talk about here before we sort of open it up to Q&A. So basically, the way it works is, on the front end, there's user input, stores data in the local Drupal database, and then a custom REST API using JSON syncs it, or Alfresco, the data is replicated. Oh, actually, there was actually one other thing that I wanted to show you guys that I just forgot here. I'll actually zip back to this. I should show you one more thing. So here's a picture from the Alfresco side. Oh yeah, asked me if I can send out a slide to presentation to participants. Yes, I am. So here, from the Alfresco side, it's the same sort of thing. Alfresco stuff, it syncs between the two different databases. Canopy Stack, basically there's the Alfresco UI and the Drupal UI on the front. Canopy sits in between, and then there's the Alfresco web scripts, Alfresco, and the Alfresco database. And then, the Drupal module is Drupal and Drupal base, and everything is syncing back and forth. And that's sort of what Canopy does in the middle of that. And then just the web services that it uses. Personally, I'm not a developer, so I can't go into too much detail on these. But if you guys do have any questions, just let me know, and I can actually get some good answers from developers. So there's the Alfresco API, there's the Alfresco connector, and these are all the different sort of services that it's using. And then just the architectural benefits. There's it's a simple JSON REST API that integrates easily into both Alfresco and Drupal, and this is available and used where it's needed. And then by replicating data between the two applications, there's no unnecessary coding made to either the application's data model or data access model, so you don't really have to hack anything, which is pretty cool. The other side, because each application can talk to its own database as they're intended, you get the full set of features of each application as they're meant to work. So, there's many options in terms of scale applications. You can have a low Alfresco implementation combined with a high large volume Drupal front end, and vice versa. So if you need a huge Alfresco back end with a smaller Drupal front end, that's possible as well. So that's the picture stuff. There's actually one more thing I did actually want to show you. I just remembered here. So I'll share my desktop really quick. You should see. Does it actually work or not? Oh, Event Center. Share my desktop. Just pops up. All right. You got this okay again?
I guess up, yes.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Brian. So one more thing that I actually, there you go, that I'd show, which is, which I missed last time around, is that you can upload multiple documents, multiple HTML files, and then sort of sync them sync them one by one to the Drupal web front end. So the idea being, if you create a whole bunch of different HTML documents, you can actually upload a bunch of documents at one time, and then have them sync up. So I'll get a quick just little demo of what that looks like. So if I basically want to upload content, select files, upload. So take 3 HTML files like this onto one folder. Say if you create a whole bunch of HTML files somewhere else and you upload them, you can go to one of these files here. I just want to make sure time is on how it is. You have to edit the data, the title, just in case. So I'll call it London 2012. But this stuff you can actually, set up all these custom rules and stuff like that. It just depends on how you want to do it. Right now we just have a really simple. Ooh, broke. That's not good. In any case, we should sync that to live, and it work. So try that one more time. There we go. So basically, you can publish this to live. So I do this. Good. That works. Publish this to the article site. So there you go. You can see here London 2012. A little bit messed up there, but that's just some of the HTML stuff. So basically, that's what it is. You can upload a bunch of documents and then quickly just publish them to live, or run workflow processes on them, or do anything like that. That's pretty for the demo here. I guess we're going to open it up to Q&A. So let me see here. So the official benefits and thanks. So yeah, guys, I guess we could open up to Q&A here. So did you want to get into this? Brian and Peter, feel free to jump in on any of these questions here.
Sure.
That was just,
yeah, sure. Excellent. So if folks, if you have a question for any of the panelists, please use the QA tab in Webex, and I can prioritize them for my colleagues and myself. But that's great for us to see those. And Peter and James, you can see those questions in the Okay, so the first question is good. This is from Bren. It says, is Canopy released under GPL or otherwise? So how would someone take advantage of these technologies, James?
Absolutely. Right now, Canopy is just something that we've developed in Appnovation to allow us to take advantage of what we've developed. So what the plan is for us, later this year, it's something we just released, and we're starting to use it. We've done a lot of integrations over the years. But putting this together is, something we've done just recently. So down the line, the idea is, yes, we're going to release it so people can use it. Currently, not right now, we have got to make sure that everything is 100% perfect with it. So before we do that, then we're going to probably be releasing it.
Great. The question here from Gal, we have a Drupal-based intranet. Can we add Canopy to something that we already have to integrate with Alfresco? So we wanted to add Alfresco to their existing Drupal intranet.
Yes, yeah, that should be fine, absolutely. So Canopy is actually developed right now. The working version that we're using it on right now is it's actually a Drupal 6 based solution with Alfresco Enterprise. So that's what it is right now. So yes, we can integrate it with current Drupal websites. So we have to, you can basically you can just map content types into Alfresco and have the data be replicated into Alfresco.
Yep. Here's a question from Arthur. In a case where you want to use Drupal as a front end to Alfresco, but don't want to sync Alfresco data into Drupal, just based on the size of the database versus the relative size of the Drupal install, does Canopy offer any advantages?
So the question was, I'm not seeing that one. Prioritize.
No, it's up in chat.
Chat? Oh, yeah, okay, just 1 second. Okay. In case where you want to use Drupal as a front end to Alfresco, but you don't want to sync Alfresco data into Drupal, advantages. Basically what it does is it allows you to choose which content you want to sync and how you want to sync it, and do you only want to sync just parts of web content, or do you want to sync, things? So what it is, with the way it's developed, you can actually take advantage of all the different web services that we developed to allow, and choose basically what you want to sync between the databases. So just, when you're actually configuring it, you just have to pick what stuff you want to sync. So that's sort of the answer with that. It's really flexible. It's more of a framework, I think. So,
maybe if I could just jump in, and it's also, I think, addressing one of the other questions that was asked by Sandra, which was, can we integrate Drupal and Alfresco without Canopy? What I would say is that for that use case, CMIS is actually an excellent choice. The CMIS is the content management and durability standard. I kind of added on a few slides earlier on. But that's a great way to have any type of client application integrate with a CMIS repository such as Alfresco, and in a way that doesn't involve any kind of syncing. It's a mechanism that allows client applications to read and write content directly from the system of record. So CMIS, basically the CMIS, we're using Canopy on top of that or not, is a great way of integrating Drupal with Alfresco, to answer Sundar's question. But also that is a way of avoiding synchronization and actually having Drupal dynamically reading content directly from that system of record. A couple of things to note, there's a bunch of CMSs that now support CMIS, so this is not an Alfresco specific thing. And there's also an Apache project called Apache Chemistry that provides client libraries. So developing a client, a content application, thinking of using a CMIS repository for some of those content services, the Apache Chemistry project is really worth looking at because it'll give you a significant head start on basically not deal at a protocol level with those repositories.
James, there's a whole bunch of questions in the prioritized queue around Canopy. So one was, what language was it written in? Is it in 2? Is it available for Drupal 7?
It's available for Drupal 7. So the language, I guess, what it is, it's more services that integrate, integrate Haskell and Drupal, because they're both different ones. One's Java and one's sort of PHP, right? So it's web services. Is it available for Drupal 7? It will be available for Drupal 7 shortly. So we're in the midst of just making sure everything works with Drupal 7. So we have developers working on that right now. We have client projects that we're moving to Drupal 7. So it will be available for Drupal 7.
Excellent. So can you talk a little bit, either one of you guys, about how to deal, and this is always a problem whenever integrating multiple systems, things like system of record issues, parent-child, and permissions between the two systems, and how to keep those in synchronization. Does Canopy take care of those things?
What it does is, a lot of Canopy, what it has in the different services it offers is for you to configure, permissions, and, for example, you upload a piece of content into Alfresco, you can run workflows on it and stuff like that. And then, the system of record on the back end, basically it allows you to configure these different types of things and pass that data back and forth between the systems. But, think of it more of it's a framework, like we call it a solution, but it also is a framework to allow you to do a lot of these different things. So each time you're going to have to, look at what your specific, use cases are, your organization, and then you can configure it based on that kind of stuff. But it's more of like a development framework, I think, if you look at it from that respect.
The way to look at it is from a use case perspective, and the public web use case, which is the primary target, understand it, of Canopy. It's interesting from an access control perspective, because generally what we're talking about is basically binary access state. Either content is published or it's not, and content that's published is accessible to anybody. So, really, from an access control perspective, the use case actually greatly simplifies things by really having the state of, is the content visible or not, and if it is visible, it's visible to everybody. So the complexities of trying to synchronize roles and access permission doesn't really come into play because the use case doesn't have that requirement. In extranet cases, that may become more complicated. In that case, and going back to the earlier architecture diagram, in that case, what you would probably do is treat Alfresco as the system of record for the content, and just Drupal or any client application reading that content directly and relying on the CMS server to correctly access control rules. At least for Alfresco, it will do, meaning it execute a CMIS call on as a particular user, so automatically factors that user access rights into that request with what the request is. So another question just about, does Canopy replace CMIS? And James, feel free to jump in here, but I think you mentioned earlier the answer is it actually uses parts of CMIS as well as some custom API calls to do what it needs to do. Is that correct, James?
Yeah, that's correct, absolutely. So, CMIS is used in that, and we use the CMIS module in Drupal for definitely for parts of this kind of stuff and technology from that. So it doesn't replace CMIS, it actually uses it. Yeah, it looks like it builds on top of CMIS by adding some constructs like the publication state that CMIS has no concept of. So it seems to me that Canopy is actually quite a nice incremental extension of CMIS for that kind of publishing internet website use case. Exactly, yeah. That's the plan. Yeah. Yep. So, here, there was one other.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Now, I was going to say a question here that says content types for pages automatically mirrored in Drupal and Alfresco or manually set up. So they were manually set up, but it's really easy to configure that. That's one of the things it allows you to configure. So it's they were manually set up in that case. So, all right, go ahead, Brian.
That was the question I was going to read.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good question. So it was you manually set them up, but it allows you to do it pretty easily. Just because it really depends on what the website is and the use cases and where you want to publish content and which content you want to publish and how you want to integrate the systems, because really each one is different. I see Stuart right now. It says if he works with Alfresco with me or just Enterprise. Right now, Canopy is designed for Alfresco Enterprise. Right now. Just to answer that question.
Hey,
just, the one other thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, James, someone, Scott, asked if about recording and making the slides available, and I know you were posting slides here. Do you want to just provide some more details if people are interested in accessing the information after the event?
Yes, absolutely. We will be posting a recording of the site. We'll be providing it to Alfresco and Acquia, as well as we'll be posting a recording on Appnovation.com, as well as putting the slides up on SlideShare. So we'll send out an email to everybody that attended with where to find it, so you can watch it after the fact, and if you want to share it around. So we'll definitely be putting that up. So, and also, if you guys have any questions at all, feel free just to email. There's an email address, canopy@appnovation.com. If any other questions that we didn't get to here, you guys can email, just get in touch, and we're happy to help you guys out. As I'm not the most technical guy, I'm not a developer, so there are some questions that they might be able to answer a little better than me if it gets into some more technical stuff. So. Okay, so. Oh, here's actually Patrick sent. Is Canopy to feed multiple different sites with unique content for each basic Alfresco share site? For several, feed a Drupal site for several different Alfresco sites. The idea being that you can, the way that we've implemented it is it's run for all different Drupal sites from one Alfresco instance. Feed a Drupal site for several Alfresco sites. Yeah, so the way we implemented is for share, you can actually have just different, basically it's a folder structure, and different websites can have different folders syncing to the same Alfresco share repository. I hope that sort of answers what you're looking for. A question from Scott Peter. He said he asked this question before, but I'm not sure if it may. How many publishers are using Alfresco?
So we have, it's a hard question to answer, let's put it that way, and part of the problem is just the inherent nature of open source. You know, we know that we have over 3 million downloads, but we don't really know very much more than that. We don't know, for example, how many of those are using it for scale production use, how many were just kicking tires, how many of it is just hobbyists, how many are developers who just want to learn technology. So it's a bit hard for us to tell. We can say from our customer base, which we actually have better visibility into, so of the 2,000 enterprise customers that Alfresco has, we do know entertainment media is about the third largest segment. So number one is actually government, number two is financial services, and number three is entertainment and media. So this and there, and keep in mind these are assumptions. It's just my interpretation of that course data. My assumption is that a lot of those use cases would revolve around digital assets and putting things to sites. I've worked with a few of our customers who are doing things like sending video or rich media assets between their own internal design teams and external subcontractors at Alfresco to coordinate the production of those assets, and then the assets eventually get sent out for publication as part of a product or put on a website or what have you, promotional materials, that kind of thing. So unfortunately, I don't have a better answer than that, but you know, you might look at it and say something like 10 to 15% of Alfresco's paying customers in the entertainment media segment, and those probably large proportion of them are what you would call pushers.
I think we're about ready to wrap it up here. Just to this is James. Just want to say thanks a lot to Brian and Acquia, and also Peter and Alfresco. You know, we really appreciate you guys getting on this with us here. You know, it's fantastic. We really like working guys, and you know, we hope people can take advantage of Canopy and using both Alfresco and Drupal together. You know, absolutely. I just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you, James, for having us.
Thank you. Yep.
That's cool. Well, yeah, I guess you know, let's call it for now. And you know, as I said, if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to email us at canopy@appnovation.com. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks, everyone.